Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, education lovers, and welcome to this week's installment of Big Ideas in Education. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Doral College, joined by Dr. Sarah Boulos from Somerset Academy Schools. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, Ryan. Hi, everybody.
Hi to everyone as well. We are continuing our four-part series into highlighting the four finalists of the 2022 National Teacher of the Year Award. We are in part 3 this week, highlighting the achievements of a pretty terrific teacher that Sarah is going to tell us about right now.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Kurt Russell, a history teacher at Oberlin High School in Ohio. And no, of course, we're not talking about the actor Kurt Russell. We're talking about the 2022 Ohio Teacher of the Year, who's the finalist for the National Teacher of the Year Award. Mr. Russell teaches U.S. history, history of the Americas, African American history, and race, gender, and oppression, and says that he strives to bring cultural relevance and diverse representation to his lessons. It's something really personal for him, as he's wanted to become an educator since he was in the 8th grade and saw that representation firsthand for the first time in the form of his first Black male teacher. As a Black male himself, he recognized the significance. 2% of all teachers are Black males, which is obviously very, very low. He said, I think it's important in regards to reaching all students. It's not just reaching Black students, it's reaching all students and breaking down some stereotypes, some of the false narratives of Black males in the United States of America. It's equity, representation in the classroom. Make sure we empower students and give students a voice, he says. It gives students a sense of my education matters. My race, my sex, my sexual orientation, it matters. And it should be reflected in our curriculum. But not only our curriculum, but our staff and faculty as well. And like at least one other National Teacher of the Year finalist we've highlighted on the program, Mr. Russell demonstrates another key aspect of representation in the community, as he too is a former student of the same Oberlin High School where he now teaches.
Wow, that's a delightful pattern that we're seeing among the finalists here. That's cool.
It's really cool. Russell credits his own kindergarten teacher for instilling a lifelong love of learning, and he shares that love with anyone who considers entering the teaching profession, stating, everyone has a favorite teacher, right? That's the impact of teaching. What I tell a young person is that it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Is it difficult? Yes. Does it get hard sometimes? Yes. Does it get frustrating sometimes? Yes. But at the end of the day, it is so, so worth it. There is not a profession, in my humble experience, that has made or is making a bigger impact than teaching. Of course, we're wishing you the very best of luck, Kurt, as you compete for this award.
Wow, that is super inspiring. And I'm a big fan of what he is accomplishing in the classroom. And yes, I love the teachers who are students at the school coming back to teach at the same school. We have a lot of examples of that with the schools that we work with, Sarah. And
that's true.
It's such a great thing to see. It makes me smile every time. And I think that the things that Mr. Russell was noting about teacher representation is not only true in our own anecdotal experience, but the data bear it out, right?
Absolutely.
We've cited studies repeatedly that talk about that when you bring in teachers of color, minority teachers into the classroom, not only does it boost the academic performance of students of color, but it boosts the academic performance of white students as well. Diversity in the profession is a prerequisite to getting the most out of students and to achieving the best learning outcomes. And especially if we have inspiring teachers like Mr. Russell in there, that's always going to be a big win. And of course, there's a lot to be said about making sure that there's representation, not just in the teaching faculty of a school, but that there's effective representation in the curriculum, especially in social studies. And it's been very encouraging in recent years to see how a lot more social studies lessons and history lessons are acknowledging the great work of historical figures of color and helping move this nation and this world forward. Because we're seeing a lot more of those figures now, and we're hearing their stories now a lot more than, say, when you or I were learning social studies.
Right. And that, I think, has to do really with the idea of educators talking about the lack of that in our curriculum, right? So the more we have representation in the faculty,
Yeah.
we have them questioning, why is our curriculum not mentioning some of these critical moments in our history, some of these critical figures? Why is this perspective there? And I think it has to do, it's kind of this beautiful cycle of, we as educators want to teach our students to question what we read and what we are learning. We want to question the source of that material. And so then we're bringing those students into the faculty, and we as faculty are questioning the biases that we see in some of our materials and curriculum, and the narratives that surround who we are and what it means to be an American. I know that something that I remember this from when I was a student, talking about the idea of the American dream, and what is the American dream, and who is the American dream for, and does it include or exclude certain groups of people? And having that conversation all the way through as an educator, when I get to have that conversation with my students and question the materials that we bring to them to have that conversation, what essays, what poems, what speeches do we bring to the table to talk about who is included and left out of this concept of the American dream? And that's just one example, I'm sure, of many, many conversations like that.
For sure. The two candidates that we talked about in the prior weeks, Whitney Aragaki and Autumn Rivera, both science teachers, I think taught us both the same lesson in their stories, which is that science is not something that you just learn. Science is something that you're an active participant in.
Yeah,
and
great point.
Mr. Russell is telling us something similar here, that history isn't just about memorizing facts and dates, the who, what, where,
Right.
when, and why. It's a process of inquiry. You are a participant in history. Your job as a historian is to go back at the story that's already been told and question it. Are we leaving characters out? Are we giving certain events short shrift? We need to go back to the sources. We need to go back to the materials and make sure that we are telling the story actively so that we can learn the lessons that we need to learn going forward. And I love this theme of history being not just something you learn, but an ongoing process of inquiry, because our next teacher that we're going to chronicle next week, Joseph Welch, does that as well. So I'm loving that we're just going to continue some great social studies stories going forward.
Absolutely. I think it's really important that we continue this conversation when we talk about representation. We continue to talk about it not just as, hey, why is it that we don't have enough representation in the teaching profession? But really, I know we've talked about it before, really, what barriers do we see that are preventing accurate representation, that we're representing the communities of our students, that we're representing the communities of our school districts, of our states, right? That kind of question needs to be probed in the same way that we're questioning the materials in front of us, the same way we're questioning the way that characters in history are represented. What is happening today? What would our, future generations talk about were the issues that we were having that's preventing that kind of representation in our faculty, in our administration, in our leadership, all the way through our education system? And I know it's something that's very dear to my heart, and I want us to make sure we continue as a theme on the show.
Absolutely. And not just because representation is important for its own sake, because it certainly is, but representation leads to better student learning outcomes across all demographic groups. This is a pretty solid point in the data that has been proven time and time again.
Absolutely.
All right. We got one more National Teacher of the Year finalist that we're going to highlight next week. We really appreciate you hanging with us for this series. We love talking about great teachers, so I love that we've been able to devote a whole section of this show, of 4 weeks of this show, to highlighting them. If you want to learn more about the 4 finalists for the National Teacher of the Year, knowing that the winner will be announced later in 2022, we encourage you to check out www.ntoy.ccsso.org. You can learn more about the 4 finalists: Autumn Rivera, Whitney Aragaki, Kurt Russell, and our teacher that we're highlighting next week, Joseph Welch from Pennsylvania. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Have a great day.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.